ghostly tales, yet mirrors of human life. Hey, everyone! Welcome to Encountering Chinese. Ghostly Tales from Liao Zhai. Today, I'm going to tell you a story called Fairy-Pian. Luo Zifu was from Binzhou in Shaanxi. His parents passed away when he was very young, around 8 or 9 years old. He was then raised by his uncle, Luo Dai. Luo Dai was an official at the Imperial Academy and was very wealthy, but he had no children of his own. Therefore, he cherished Luo Zifu greatly and treated him as if he were his own son. When Luo Zifu was 14 years old, he fell under the influence of bad company and became engrossed in a life of debauchery, frequenting various brothels. At that time, there was a courtesan who came from Jinling and happened to settle in Binzhou for a while. Luo Zifu was deeply infatuated with this courtesan and captivated by her. Soon after, the courtesan returned to Jinling. When she left, Luo Zifu secretly followed her and left Binzhou. He stayed with the courtesan for half a year in her residence in Jinling, and all the money he brought with him was spent. When the courtesans saw him in poverty, they began to mock and scorn him, although they didn't immediately kick him out of the brothel. Before long, Luo Zifu contracted a venereal disease, and his body began to decay. Sometimes, he inadvertently left pus and fluids from his wounds on the bed, making it unbearable for the courtesans. Finally, they expelled him from the brothel. Luo Zifu ended up in Jinling, suffering from illness and having spent all his money. He became a beggar, begging on the streets for sustenance. However, when people saw his festering sores, they would avoid him, afraid to get too close. Fearing he would die in Jinling, Luo Zifu decided to head westward, begging for food while making his way toward his hometown. He could cover about 20 to 30 miles a day. Day by day, he gradually walked back into the territory of Binzhou. But when he saw his tattered clothes and festering sores, he felt too ashamed to face his relatives. Consequently, he roamed near Binzhou's villages, afraid to enter the city to visit his uncle. One evening, as Luo Zifu was planning to spend the night in an abandoned temple on the mountainside, he encountered a woman. She was exceptionally beautiful, resembling a celestial being. As Luo Zifu approached the woman, she asked, "Where are you headed?" Luo Zifu truthfully shared his situation with her. The woman said, "I am a monastic, and I live in a nearby mountain cave. It's spacious, and you can stay there without worrying about tigers or wolves at night." Delighted by her offer, Luo Zifu followed her. They ventured deeper into the mountains and indeed found a large cave ahead. After entering the cave, Luo Zifu noticed a small stream in front of the cave entrance, with a small stone bridge spanning it. They walked a few more steps inside, and he saw 2 stone chambers ahead. The chambers were well lit, eliminating the need for a lamp. The woman asked Luo Zifu to remove his tattered clothes and wash in the stream. She told him, "Clean yourself up in the water, and your festering wounds will naturally heal." After Luo Zifu had bathed, the woman drew back the curtain and prepared a bedding for him, urging him to sleep early. She said, "You should go to sleep now. I'll make you a set of clothes." With that, She took a large leaf resembling a banana leaf, trimmed and sewed it. Luo Zifu lay on the bed watching her make the clothes, and surprisingly, the clothes were finished in no time. The woman folded the clothes neatly and placed them by his bedside, saying, "Put these on when you wake up tomorrow morning." Then, she laid down on the bed opposite him. Luo Zifu noticed that after bathing in the stream, the pain from his sores had miraculously disappeared. In the middle of the night, he woke up from a dream and touched his sores, finding them covered with a thick layer of scabs. The next morning, as Luo Zifu prepared to get up, he remembered the banana leaf clothes by his bed and felt somewhat skeptical. He picked up the banana leaf garment and was astonished to find that it had transformed into smooth, shining green silk. A while later, it was time for breakfast. The woman brought some leaves from the mountain, claiming they were bread. When Luo Zifu took a bite, he realized the taste and texture were indeed that of bread. The woman then fashioned leaves into shapes resembling chicken and fish, cooking them in a pot. Once done, she served the cooked food to Luo Zifu. When he took a bite, it tasted and felt just like real food. In one corner of the stone chamber, there was a large jar filled with wine. The woman would often pour some out to drink. If the wine in the jar was slightly depleted, she would replenish it with water from the stream. Luo Zifu stayed in the mountains for several days, and all his festering sores had healed. He expressed his desire to stay with the woman. She said, "You cheeky fellow. Just saved your life and now that you're safe, you're back to overthinking again." Luo Zifu replied, "I merely want to repay your kindness." From that day on, they lived together like a married couple. They loved each other dearly, and their days were filled with happiness. One day, a young woman entered the cave with a smile. As soon as she entered, she exclaimed, "Pian-Pian, you little rascal, you seem to be enjoying yourself now. When did you two start living together?" Pian-Pian welcomed her and said with a smile, "Oh, it's Lady Huacheng. It's been a while since we had the honor of your presence. You must have been blown here by a strong southwest wind today. Has your child been born?" Lady Huacheng said, "Don't mention the child. It's another girl." Pian-Pian laughed and said, "Lady Huacheng gave birth to a girl. Why didn't you bring her along?" Lady Huacheng replied, "I just soothed her for a while. She's sleeping soundly now." Saying that, Lady Huacheng sat down leisurely. She lifted a cup of wine and drank it slowly. She glanced at Luo Zifu and remarked, "You young man, you're truly fortunate." Luo Zifu examined Lady Huacheng closely. She was around 23 or 24 years old, incredibly beautiful, with graceful manners. Luo Zifu couldn't help but fall in love with her. Luo Zifu absent-mindedly peeled the fruit, and accidentally dropped one under the table. He bent down as if pretending to pick up the fruit, but secretly pinched Lady Huacheng's foot. Lady Huacheng looked away, her eyes pretending not to notice, and continued to chat and laugh, seemingly oblivious to what had just happened. While Luo Zifu was lost in thought, he suddenly felt his clothes turning cold. He looked down and saw that they had all turned into autumn leaves. He was almost frightened to death and quickly composed himself, sitting down. After a while, his clothes gradually returned to their original state. Luo Zifu felt relieved that neither of the women had witnessed his embarrassment. A little later, taking advantage of the opportunity to offer a drink, Luo Zifu lightly scratched Lady Huaqing's palm with his fingers. Lady Huaqing conversed as if nothing had happened, as if she was completely unaware. Luo Zifu's heart raced, and he seemed a bit dazed. When he snapped out of it, he suddenly realized his clothes had turned into leaves again. It took quite a while for them to revert back to normal. Blushing, Luo Zifu dismissed any thoughts of teasing Lady Huaqing and dared not let his mind wander again. Lady Huaqing laughed and said to Pian-Pian, "Your little husband isn't very well behaved, is he? If not for you, this vinegar-gourd lady, I'm afraid he'd have jumped to the sky today." Pian-Pian also smiled and said, "You heartless thing, you should have frozen to death." Both women burst into hearty laughter. Lady Huaqing stood up from her seat and said to Pian-Pian, "It's getting late, and my daughter will probably wake up soon. If she wakes up and can't find me, she might cry a lot." Pian-Pian also stood up and replied to Lady Huaqing, "You're too busy charming other people's men. You've forgotten about your daughter little Jiangcheng a long time ago." As they spoke, the two of them walked out of the room. After Lady Huaqing left, Luo Zifu felt uneasy. He was afraid that Pian-Pian would scold him, but when Pian-Pian returned, she acted just as she always did. After some time had passed, it was deep autumn. The mountain winds grew chilly, frost coated the leaves, and Pian-Pian began collecting fallen leaves, stockpiling food for the upcoming winter. She noticed Luo Zifu shivering in the cold, so she used a bundle of bark to gather the patches of white cloud at the cave entrance, fashioning them into cotton-like material to sew a quilted jacket for him. When Luo Zifu put on the jacket, he instantly felt warm. The jacket was light, soft, and fluffy, making it incredibly comfortable to wear. The following year, Pian-Pian gave birth to a son who appeared very intelligent and handsome. Luo Zifu would spend his days amusing the child in the cave. Despite the comfortable life, he often missed his homeland. So, he suggested to Pian-Pian that they both return to visit his uncle. Pian-Pian told Luo Zifu, "I cannot accompany you on this journey. You should go alone." Hearing this, Luo Zifu dropped the matter. In this way, 2 or 3 more years passed. Their son grew older, and they arranged a marriage between their son and Lady Huaqing's daughter. Luo Zifu still frequently thought of his elderly uncle, and Pian-Pian reassured him, saying, "Although your uncle is getting older, he's still strong. You need not worry excessively. Once we raise our son to adulthood and celebrate their marriage, you can choose whether to leave or stay." Pian-Pian would often write on leaves in the cave to teach their son to read. The boy had an exceptional memory and could read things at a glance. Pian-Pian said to Luo Zifu, "Our child is blessed. When he goes to the mortal world, becoming a high-ranking official like a prime minister won't be difficult." After a few more years, their son turned 14. Lady Huacheng personally brought her daughter Jiangqing over to complete the marriage ceremony with their son. Jiangqing was extraordinarily beautiful, adorned in exquisite clothing that highlighted her radiance. Luo Zifu and Pian adored their new daughter-in-law, so they gathered their family for a grand banquet. During the feast, Pian tapped her golden hairpin and sang, "I have a good son, not envious of becoming a prime minister. I have a good daughter-in-law, not envious of wearing fine clothes. Tonight, we gather together, and everyone should be joyful. I offer a toast to all of you, encouraging you to eat and drink heartily." Afterward, Lady Huacheng departed, and the couple and their son and daughter-in-law lived across from each other. The new daughter-in-law was especially filial, often nestling by her mother-in-law's side, just like their own daughter. Luo Zifu brought up the idea of returning to his hometown again, but Pian said, "You were originally a mortal, you can't become an immortal after all. Our son is destined for wealth and prosperity. Take him with you too. I don't want to hinder his future." As the new daughter-in-law was about to bid her mother farewell, Lady Huacheng arrived. The two pairs of young lovers hesitated to part from their mothers, their eyes filled with tears. Both mothers comforted them, saying, "You can leave for now, but you can come back later." So, Pian fashioned leaves into a makeshift donkey, allowing the three to set off on the donkey's back. Luo Zifu's uncle, Luo Dai, had retired and returned to his hometown, leading a leisurely life. He had thought his nephew Luo Zifu had long since passed away. However, one day he suddenly saw his nephew returning with a handsome grandson and a beautiful granddaughter-in-law. This sight filled him with immense joy, as if he had discovered a treasure. As the three entered the house, they looked at their clothes and found that they had transformed into banana leaves. With a tug, the banana leaves tore apart, and the white clouds within the clothes gradually rose into the sky. Thus, all three of them reverted to their earthly attire. Later, Luo Zifu missed Pian again and decided to take his son into the deep mountains to search for her. They discovered that the familiar paths were now covered with yellow leaves, and the route leading to the cave was obscured by thick white clouds. Unable to find their way to the cave, father and son had no choice but to return with tears in their eyes. At the end of the story, the author added the following commentary. He said, "Pian and Lady Huacheng were probably celestial beings, right? They ate leaves and wore white clouds. This is truly a strange thing." However, despite his experiences of joy, anger, love, and the upbringing of children, Luo Zifu's life in that place was just like life on Earth. He lived in the mountains for 15 years, and while he didn't experience the changes of the mortal world's eras, when he returned to the cave in search of his wife, all he could see were the gentle white clouds, making him realize how everything has changed. Alright. That's all for today's ghostly tale. Pian. If you enjoyed it, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe. Please also encourage everyone to comment and share more. We'll see you in the next episode.